The next morning, Zhou Wen recovers from his fright, and he has never experienced such excruciating pain before. Suddenly, Zhou Wen notices that a blood-colored ant icon has appeared on the back of his hand after obtaining the symbiotic egg last night. The color is bright and eerie. Zhou Wen is secretly surprised. Did I succeed? He quickly opens the game on his phone to check. Sure enough, a red mutated ant has been added to the column of symbiotic pets. It has a strength of 9, speed of body breaking 9, Qi Jin season talent of 9, and 9 stages of the Great God's Fist. After several days of grinding, Zhou Wen has finally acquired a symbiotic egg that can hatch mutated dolly ants. These ants have properties that are comparable to those of top-level Taiji humans, and having them as companions can significantly boost Zhou Wen's strength. He can't wait to summon the mutated dolly ant and see what it looks like. Zhou Wen quickly closed all the doors and windows, drew the curtains tightly, and prepared to try summoning the full set of mutated dolly ants. As Zhou Wen's thoughts transmit, the pattern of the mutated dolly ant on the back of his left hand explodes in a dazzling bloodlight. The blood color on the pattern comes alive and transforms into flowing blood liquid on Zhou Wen's palm, quickly wrapping his entire left hand, forming a non-golden armor set. Zhou Wen feels a powerful energy surge into his left fist, as if he could punch a tank with one blow. Zhou Wen muses to himself that the symbiotic egg has the effect of enhancing oneself, and the great strength of the mutated dolly ant should increase his strength. He can't test its enhancement effect's power yet. And then he summons the mutated ants. In reality, the mutated dolly ant is as large as a racehorse and not as adorable as it appears in the game. Its alluring yet perilous appearance leaves Zhou Wen in shocked. The game's graphics are unreliable, turning such a vicious killing tool into a cute creature. Zhou Wen has no intention of revealing the existence of the mutated ant unless necessary. The following day, after school, Zhou Wen meets with Li Xian, as arranged by Yu Qiubai. He gives Zhou Wen a meaningful reminder that Li Xian is a rich second generation with a relatively high-profile personality, and his only goal this time is to participate in the exam. Zhou Wen needn't worry too much about other things. Zhou Wen nods in agreement. Before long, they arrive at a private club located in the eastern part of the city. Although Zhou Wen is mentally prepared, he is still taken aback by the luxurious club's interior. Shortly after, they enter the private room where Li Xian is located. Zhou Wen sees a young man, aged 16 or 17, sitting on a lavish sofa with disheveled clothing, surrounded by beautiful women, creating an intense atmosphere in the room. A beautiful woman approaches Zhou Wen and invites him to do something interesting. Li Xian assures him that he will take care of Zhou Wen. Yu Qiubai agrees, feeling relieved with Li Xian's presence. Yu Qiubai leaves and tells Zhou Wen that he will handle other things himself. Zhou Wen feels grateful. Li Xian looks down on Zhou Wen and mentions that he had heard that Zhou Wen was a genius in Guide High School. Zhou Wen denies, saying it was just a rumor. Li Xian says that real geniuses wouldn't appear in such small places anymore and wouldn't be easily defeated by a girl. Li Xian asks Zhou Wen to join his team, and Zhou Wen agrees to follow them and earn points. Zhou Wen takes out his phone to start playing the game again. Li Xian picks up a wine bottle and says that Zhou Wen would get a girl if he finished one bottle. Zhou Wen refuses and continues playing the game because he believes that women would only hinder him from becoming stronger. Li Xian sees that Zhou Wen has been sitting on the couch playing games for a long time without moving and feels more contemptuous of him. Suddenly, he whispers something into the ear of a sexy girl named Xiaoya, who walks towards Zhou Wen while swaying her hips. Xiaoya, who is a top model, tries to get Zhou Wen's attention by speaking in a sweet voice and asking what game he is playing. Zhou Wen, however, continues to play the game without responding to her or looking up. Xiaoya tries to turn his face and asks if the game is more fun than she is, but Zhou Wen remains motionless with his eyes fixed on the game screen. A silver light suddenly flashes in the game, and a strange ant with silver wings appears in front of Zhou Wen. Xiaoya keeps teasing Zhou Wen and trying to get him to do something fun, but he's becoming annoyed by the fast and agile silver wing ant. Xiaoya becomes irritated, and she forcibly turns Zhou Wen's face, squeezing too hard and slightly deforming his face. Zhou Wen's gaze is forced away from his phone screen, and he frowns. Just now, he had seen a mutant ant charging over with great force. If he doesn't control his blood crimson quickly, he will be killed by the enemy. Without much thought, Zhou Wen reaches out and pushes Xiaoya's face with a little force, causing her to fall backward with a splash. Her face is filled with grievances and anger. This funny scene is making Li Xian laugh out loud. As the result, Zhou Wen can't dodge the attack and his character dies. This funny scene is making Li Xian laugh out loud. As the result, Zhou Wen can't dodge the attack and his character dies. As night falls and after a night of eating, drinking, and having fun, Li Xian falls asleep peacefully. Meanwhile, Zhou Wen returns to the place where he first encountered the silver wing ant and sees the same kind of ant, with a silver body and wings that appear to be made of silver. The silver wing ant is very agile and fast, like a bat that can change direction easily. Zhou Wen's great strength hook is ineffective against it, and he is quickly killed by the ant. Zhou Wen realizes that he doesn't have enough strength to beat the silver wing ant, which is as strong as mutant great strength and much faster. Although the power of great strength punch is sufficient to kill the silver wing ant, it is pointless if he cannot hit it. If he could use the power of great strength punch like 1-inch punch, he would have a chance to strike the silver wing ant with his strength the moment it is close. Since the character in the game is him, so as long as he improved the great strength punch in real life, theoretically, his game character will synchronize that improvement. Zhou Wen puts away his phone and starts researching how to use 1-inch punch to combine it with the power of great strength hook. Great strength punch involves open and close movements to deliver a powerful punch, with the arm making a large backward motion upon launch, which is different from 1-inch punch launch style. Changing great strength punching style to match 1-inch punch is challenging, but Zhou Wen perseveres and tries repeatedly. Li Xian falls asleep for a while and wakes up to find Zhou Wen practicing boxing in the room. He watches for a bit but loses interest when he realizes that his punching style is clumsy and not as impressive as he initially thought. The college entrance examination is quickly approaching, with the first 3 days consisting of regular written exams. Zhou Wen and Li Xian go to their respective exam rooms to complete the tests. On the 4th day, a real combat test takes place in Guide Ancient City. The test occurs in the city's dimensional realm, with variations between different regions. The practical college entrance examination is officially underway. The test is taking place inside Guide Ancient City, where all living creatures have mutated due to a one-dimensional storm that occurred in the past. Real armed forces are stationed outside the city to guard it, and entry is prohibited without permission. Zhou Wen is standing outside the city gate, waiting for Li Xian and 2 other team members who have yet to arrive. The north gate of the ancient city is old and mysterious, with thin, weathered bricks in the gate tower. The 3 characters Kuei de Fu are engraved on the plaque above the gate. Zhou Wen notices something unusual about the plaque. Next to it is an indentation in the shape of a handprint pressed into the city brick. As far as Zhou Wen knows, this handprint wasn't there before the one-dimensional storm, and it's said to have appeared behind the gate point after the storm. Suddenly, he feels his phone vibrating in his pocket. He thinks it might be from Yu Qiubai or Li Xian, but when he reaches into his pocket to take out his phone, he's surprised. The phone in his pocket isn't the normal phone he usually uses, it's the mysterious one. Zhou Wen is puzzled because this has never happened before, and no one around him seems to be paying attention. He takes the phone out of his pocket and sees that the screen has automatically turned on, and a camera icon suddenly appears alongside the usual apps. The phone has entered camera mode, but instead of taking a selfie, it's using the rear camera. Zhou Wen raises the phone to the nearby trees and flowers to try out the camera function. After experimenting for a bit, he discovers that the camera function is broken and can't take pictures properly. He taps the screen once with his finger, but the phone still doesn't respond. Then, Zhou Wen moves the phone around, and when the handprint on the gate appears on the camera screen, he hears a low sound, and the phone suddenly responds, which surprises him. He wonders what this is. He takes a closer look and sees a green frame suddenly appear in the upper right corner of the phone, focusing on the handprint icon. After 3 beeps, the handprint icon enlarges on the screen, and the ancient city behind it gradually blurs, and a line of text appears below, loading. Zhou Wen stares at the mysterious phone, and a bold idea suddenly pops into his head, startling him. Soon, the loading message changes to load complete. But not long after, the handprint icon turns into an image and stops next to the ant nest icon. Below it are 3 words, since ancient times. Zhou Wen is excited and wants to see what the new apps looks like. The practical college entrance examination is officially underway. The test is taking place inside Guide Ancient City, where all living creatures have mutated due to a one-dimensional storm that occurred in the past. Real armed forces are stationed outside the city to guard it, and entry is prohibited without permission. Zhou Wen is standing outside the city gate, waiting for Li Xian and 2 other team members who have yet to arrive. The north gate of the ancient city is old and mysterious, with thin, weathered bricks in the gate tower. The 3 characters Kuei de Fu are engraved on the plaque above the gate. Zhou Wen notices something unusual about the plaque. Next to it is an indentation in the shape of a handprint pressed into the city brick. As far as Zhou Wen knows, this handprint wasn't there before the one-dimensional storm, and it's said to have appeared behind the gate point after the storm. Suddenly, he feels his phone vibrating in his pocket. He thinks it might be from Yu Qiu Bai or Li Xian, but when he reaches into his pocket to take out his phone, he's surprised. The phone in his pocket isn't the normal phone he usually uses, it's the mysterious one. Zhou Wen is puzzled because this has never happened before, and no one around him seems to be paying attention. He takes the phone out of his pocket and sees that the screen has automatically turned on, and a camera icon suddenly appears alongside the usual apps. The phone has entered camera mode, but instead of taking a selfie, it's using the rear camera. Zhou Wen raises the phone to the nearby trees and flowers to try out the camera function. After experimenting for a bit, he discovers that the camera function is broken and can't take pictures properly. He taps the screen once with his finger, but the phone still doesn't respond. Then, Zhou Wen moves the phone around, and when the handprint on the gate appears on the camera screen, he hears a low sound, and the phone suddenly responds, which surprises him. He wonders what this is. He takes a closer look and sees a green frame suddenly appear in the upper right corner of the phone, focusing on the handprint icon. After 3 beeps, the handprint icon enlarges on the screen, and the ancient city behind it gradually blurs, and a line of text appears below, loading. Zhou Wen stares at the mysterious phone, and a bold idea suddenly pops into his head, startling him. Soon, the loading message changes to load complete. But not long after, the handprint icon turns into an image and stops next to the ant nest icon. Below it are 3 words, since ancient times. Zhou Wen is excited and wants to see what the new apps looks like. He expertly bites his finger and clicks on the ancient city icon, dripping a drop of blood. On the phone screen, a Q version of Zhou Wen with bloody clothes instantly appears. Under his control, the character enters the city gate and begins to explore. Zhou Wen sees that everything in front of him is an exact replica of the ancient city interior videos he had seen online. Suddenly, he notices a monster holding a glowing blue stick not far away. He had seen this creature in the videos before. It was the dimensional biological soldier of the Guide Ancient City, and the soldier school had taught the method to deal with skeleton soldiers like this one. Even normal students could handle 1 or 2 skeleton soldiers without much trouble. The skeletal soldier charges at the little person with a fierce expression, holding its weapon. However, its speed is much slower, and the little person can easily dodge its attack. The skeletal soldier is a relatively weak dimensional biological species, and its overall strength pales in comparison to that of the big power. As a result, the little person controlled by Zhou Wen launches a counterattack and delivers a powerful punch that shatters Loki's skeleton soldier into bone debris. Suddenly, Zhou Wen hears the sound of a gem dropping, and a blue dimensional crystal appears among the bone debris on the ground. The little person approaches to take a closer look and discovers it is a dimensional energy record crystal of the cool stock soldier. Zhou Wen finds this strange. Could his luck be turning around already? He's gotten a dimensional energy record crystal as soon as he started, and finally, he can make a comeback. Zhou Wen immediately controls the little person to pick up the crystal. It crystallizes into a gray-white airflow and drills into the little person's body, while a cold breath flows through Zhou Wen's palm via the phone, spreading and forming a strange dimensional energy circulation route within his body. Zhou Wen is surprised that he doesn't feel uncomfortable at all after absorbing it this time. Then, a notification sound is heard, indicating that Zhou Wen has gained some dimensional energy. As a result, he acquires the skeleton palm skill, and using them requires a small amount of dimensional energy. Zhou Wen can't help but shake his head and sigh. Among them is a skeleton that he hasn't seen before. The skeletal general, mounted on a skeletal horse, is a massive figure with bones that gleam like ivory. It wears armor, a cloak, and wields a sharp spear that stretches over 2 meters in length. The general emits a terrifying scream, prompting Zhou Wen to prepare for a counterattack. However, the spear suddenly accelerates, blurring in Zhou Wen's vision. It pierces through the mutated big power and impales the little person. Consequently, the game screen goes black, signifying that Zhou Wen has been killed in a single hit. Though annoyed, Zhou Wen recognizes that challenging difficult levels is what makes the game interesting. He gazes up at the Guide Ancient City, feeling a range of emotions. As Zhou Wen is lost in thought, a girl approaches him from behind. Initially, he assumes it's Li Xian and the others, but upon turning around, he's surprised to see An Jing, whom he hasn't seen in a while. An Jing has a small, classically shaped nose with a hint of baby fat, and her face radiates both femininity and strength. Her cat-like eyes are resolute and commanding, giving off an air of unapproachability. An Jing strides up to Zhou Wen and offers hand bump, explaining that Feng Shu asked her to deliver something to him. Zhou Wen is taken aback, but before he can speak, An Jing opens her hand and tosses a USB drive at him. She glances down at Zhou Wen's phone with disdain, commenting that giving something to someone addicted to games is useless. Without waiting for a response, Jing turns around and walks away. However, before she leaves, she warns Zhou Wen not to tell anyone that he's related with her family, as they do not accept weak and incompetent people. Zhou Wen watches her leave and mutters to himself that he was never part of her family and had no intention of being associated with them. Suddenly, a sound interrupts his thoughts, and he sees Li Xian walking towards him with two young men. They don't look like students from Guoda High School and are probably just hanging around there. Li Xian doesn't introduce the two men, instead putting his arm around Zhou Wen's shoulder and saying that he will fulfill old US request and that Zhou Wen should follow them. The practical test is about to begin. Li Xian arrives late with two other teammates. Li Xian laughs and tells Zhou Wen to follow him once they enter the ancient city, and he doesn't have to do anything else. He entrusts the rest to his teammates. Zhou Wen is pleased to hear this, and the two young men assure Li Xian that they will ensure he gets first place in the practical test at the Guoda ancient city. The way they talk makes it sound like getting first place in the test is as easy as eating and drinking. Li Xian frowns slightly and tells his teammates that while he trusts them, they must make sure nothing goes wrong. He is determined to get first place in the practical test at the Guoda mansion. Jiang Hao quickly reassures him and promises to do his best. As they wait for the test to begin, two girls walk by and Zhou Wen gives a thumbs up to encourage them. Suddenly, there is a loud explosion outside the gates. The door slowly opens, and the invigilator announces that the test will be based on the number of crystal they obtained, and the total number of crystal will also determine the ranking. As the invigilator finishes speaking, Zhou Wen passes the gate and enters the ancient city. The further he goes, the thicker the fog becomes. As he enters the fog, he begins to feel dizzy. As he continues, the fog seems to disappear, and he can clearly see the ancient city's stone streets and various blue-tiled and red-walled buildings. Li Xian and his teammates are just a few steps ahead of him. All the students participating in the test rush towards the ancient city's streets and alleys, hoping to kill as many skeleton soldiers as possible and get a better score. The skeleton soldiers begin to attack, but Li Xian's teammate, Jiang Hao, quickly kills them with a purple light. Meanwhile, Su Mian too effortlessly defeats the skeleton soldiers with his bare hands. Watching the two fight against the skeletons, Zhou Wen knows that he has nothing to do this time. Zhou Wen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It wouldn't be bad if he could get a high score while lying down. He immediately took out his phone again to explore the new dungeon. Li Xian also looked at Zhou Wen with some confusion. They were taking an exam, yet he still had the mood to play with his phone. Is he really as extraordinary as Lao Yu said he was? It's probably a coincidence that the four people went in the same direction that Zhou Wen tried in the game. They rushed all the way, and all the ancient buildings on both sides of the stone street inside the ancient city were exactly the same as in the game. Zhou Wen is surprised that reality is actually the same as the game. It is too weird. Then he thinks, are the game dungeons all real in reality? With this speed of progress, wouldn't we run into that guy who rides a skeletal horse and kills me with a single move? The number of skeleton soldiers that appear are exactly the same as in the game, but they are already outside the exam area. They shouldn't have taken such a risk. However, when Su Mian Tu and the others rush to the edge of the exam area, everyone stops and discusses whether to continue. When Zhou Wen hears that they want to continue, he immediately exclaims that it would be dangerous. Su Mian Tu advocates continuing to go deeper to get a high score. Zhou Wen tries to persuade them, but Su Mian Tu sneers, telling him to wait here if he's worried about danger. The exam area is so small, and the number of skeleton soldiers is very limited. Even if they all rush in, how many could there be? Jiang Hao continues to reassure them, saying that he has more complete information about the Guoda ancient city. He explains that even if they go another 20 or 30 miles, they will only encounter solitary ancient soldiers, and there will not be any legendary alien creatures. Although the exam area is divided conservatively, they don't want any students to have accidents. Li Xian agrees with Jiang Hao and decides to continue going deeper since their goal for this trip is to get first place. Zhou Wen realizes that his persuasion is useless from the expressions of Li Xian and the others. He knows that if Li Xian and the others die inside, his score will also be greatly affected. Zhou Wen tightens his grip on his phone and plans to avoid the skeletons. As long as he doesn't get too close to the area where General is, should not be a problem. Zhou Wen follows Li Xian and the others forward. With Jiang Hao and Su Mian Tu leading the way and rushing up, they don't have to worry about this level of skeletons being dangerous, even with more skeleton soldiers. With the strength of the two, they can kill all the skeletons easily. In order to secure Li Xian's position as the first place winner, Jiang Hao and Su Mian charge ahead with full firepower, pushing aggressively forward. Zhou Wen, on the other hand, silently attacks from the back, with his fingers rapidly moving on his phone, indicating that he has encountered a powerful enemy. Suddenly, the game character comes face to face with General Kugu, who is riding a skeletal horse, and charges at him with full force. The bone spear approaches rapidly, leaving the character no chance to defend himself and piercing through his chest. Once again, just like the first time, the boss kills him instantly upon their meeting. Zhou Wen feels that something is amiss as he realizes he has no defense against the boss. In real life, they would all be unable to escape him. Zhou Wen is certain that the spear is a type of speed component, otherwise, it wouldn't be fast enough for him to react. As they rush forward, Zhou Wen reflects on the difficulty of dealing with the skeletal knight, which may even surpass that of the silver-winged ant. If he can't come up with a solution, the likelihood of them being wiped out is high. Despite this, they come across a power-dimensional crystal that drops from a skeleton soldier's body after they have killed hundreds of them. The skeleton's violence is shocking, and Su Mian eagerly picks up the crystal, knowing that it could secure their first-place position. However, as they approach the area where the skeletal knight resides, Zhou Wen once again warns Li Xian that they should stop going deeper as they have already killed enough skeleton soldiers and it could be dangerous to continue. Li Xian remains silent while Su Mian argues, "Why stop here? This number of skeletons isn't enough to secure our position." Jiang Hao supports this idea, claiming that it's safer to hunt more skeletons. Li Xian examines his phone map and concludes that his father never encountered any legendary creatures in this area, so it should be safe to proceed. Zhou Wen realizes that he needs to persuade Li Xian and the others to stop going deeper. He takes hold of Li Xian's hand and asks him if he believes in the existence of a sixth sense. Li Xian does not answer directly but instead asks Zhou Wen to explain. Zhou Wen goes on to describe his heightened sensitivity to danger and his premonitory feelings that often precede it. He taps his chest earnestly and says, "And this feeling of discomfort is stronger than any other time." Su Mian sneers at Zhou Wen and admonishes him, "Li Xian bro brought you here to help, don't be a hindrance." Keep Wen's expression darkens, and he retorts, "If I were afraid of death, I could have stayed at the entrance and waited for you." Zhou Wen convinces Li Xian not to proceed any further, recounting the number of kills they have and the power-dimensional crystal they recently acquired. Li Xian agrees and they turn back. Suddenly, a green stone dagger strikes like a venomous snake, piercing Li Xian's body and leaving a deep wound. Jiang Hao jade dagger glints with cold light. This unexpected attack catches them off guard, with Su Mian only realizing what has happened after Jiang Hao has sliced open a wound on his chest. Jiang Hao eyes fixed on the wound of Li Xian. Li Xian clutches his wound and mutters, "I never expected you to betray me." His muscles and fat around the wound start to spasm and contract, causing the wound to shrink and stop bleeding. Li Xian stares at Jiang Hao and asks, "When did you work for my second brother?" Jiang Hao is surprised that the third young master of the Li family can master the invincible connate divine art, the techniques that require being a virgin. It is said that the innate qi, which is the essence energy cultivation, comes from ancient techniques such as martial arts and ninjutsu. It wasn't until the appearance of dimensional creatures that humans absorbed the dimensional crystals and those techniques became useful, gradually forming the current innate qi. The role of innate qi for humans is crucial. Although absorbing dimensional crystals can help with growth and evolution and can even break through the limitations of rank, only by cultivating innate qi can one achieve a breakthrough. Currently, there are less than 20 known types of innate qi that can elevate humans to epic level. Connate invincible skill is one of them. However, this strange cultivation requirement of connate invincible skill is that it must be cultivated in childhood, and once the body is matured, the skill will also be lost. He never expected that Li Xian, who spends all his time among women, would actually cultivate the connate invincible skill. It's truly hard to believe. At this moment, Su Mian suddenly covers his wound and says, "If Li Xian dies here, we won't be able to explain it to our boss when we go back. Our boss is so kind to us, he loves Li Xian the most, how can you bear to make him sad?" Jiang Hao ignores Su Mian and just tightly grips the dagger, staring at Li Xian like a ruthless wolf. Li Xian looks at Jiang Hao and says, "I have never competed with my second brother for anything. In order to avoid his suspicions, I would rather immerse myself in the world of flowers. I never thought he wouldn't let me go." Jiang Hao chuckles and says, "Blame yourself for only pretending to be a pig instead of being a real pig, otherwise, there wouldn't be so many snakes around."